We open to 7 of 9 in the cargo bay, unplugging from her battery charger as Chakotay enters. She's struggling to adapt to all this solitude after having a million voices in her head for the last 20 years and wants to be assigned duties somewhere so she can be around people. It seems a fair enough request if you're willing to ignore the fact that she nearly got us all assimilated in the last episode. Unfortunately for her, B'Elanna isn't. She's already having a terrible day, and when Chakotay suggests it to her, she responds with suspicion and questions Seven's true motives. B'Elanna makes it clear she doesn't want Seven around. That's tough shit though, as Chakotay pulls rank and orders her, so that's the end of that. Before we let Seven loose in engineering, Janeway wants to make sure she understands the rules. There'll be no guard as a gesture of goodwill, but she'll be expected to follow regulations and defer to B'Elanna in all matters. She also broaches the subject of Seven's designation, suggesting that being referred to as 7 of 9 in all matters is a touch cumbersome, and perhaps she'd consider accepting 7. Seven seems open to the idea, which is probably just as well, as that's what I've been calling her since the last episode. They're interrupted by Tuvok, who tells us there's a ship incoming. It's a bit damaged and seems incapable of warp speed, though there's some question over whether that's by design or current lack of power. One of the inhabitants gives us a call to say hi and tells us his name's Ramen, so obviously we'll be referring to him as Noodles. Rather curiously, he opens with self-deprecation, apologizing for his appearance and the state of his ship. Most of his people got borged a year ago, and I suspect the presence of Seven means we're going to have a diplomatic incident this episode. He humbly begs us for food and medicine, with Janeway saying we'll do what we can. He also asks for some thorium isotope, possibly for power systems, but the lack of specifics makes me suspicious. In engineering, Ensign Conspicuous is collecting those thorium jobbies for Noodles, while Seven works on seeing if we can make a Borg transwarp what's-it to get us home. B'Elanna pops over and asks Seven if she feels any remorse for being part of a group that's responsible for atrocities like killing all of Noodle's mates, an attempt at the moral high ground that might carry more weight if we ourselves hadn't been making weapons for the Borg a couple of episodes back. Seven says she feels no guilt at her actions, which is hardly surprising given that she currently has the emotional range of cardboard. That said, even she's able to see that B'Elanna isn't fond of her and returns to her docking port whilst waiting for the computer to do computer things. A little later, B'Elanna's thinking her day can't get any worse. Unfortunately, she's chosen to think this in the mess hall, so she's about to be proven wrong. Neelix pops over with a traditional Klingon blood pie. He's heard it's the Day of Honor, a Klingon holiday where you look back on the year and see how you did. She's not bothering with it though and tells him so. He's not giving up that easily, and while he doesn't know what's bothering her specifically, he does think he can provide a service. B'Elanna tends to keep a lid on her anger till it overflows, and he's offering to be a target for that anger if she needs it. This is either a generous offer or a way to fulfill his degradation kink, but she appreciates it all the same. So much so that she starts to talk about the Day of Honor and, by extension, her complicated attitudes toward Klingon culture. She's not sure if she should observe the holiday after all, and asks Neelix, who says he believes traditions are good things. Coming from a nation whose traditions involve child labour, slavery, and invading other countries, I personally think it's not quite that simple, but B'Elanna seems more open to the idea and has some of that blood pie after all. To the holodeck, where B'Elanna's going through with that whole Day of Honor ritual thing. Frankly, I don't know what she was bothered about, as it seems to consist of canapes and wine. True, they're a bit iffy with her when they find out she hasn't done much vanquishing or conquering this year, but maybe they'll let her take the theory test instead. There's some mention of pain sticks and fighting and sulfur pits, and it's at this point that B'Elanna decides the whole thing can bollocks. Our guide doesn't take no for an answer, grabbing B'Elanna so his mates can jab her with Klingon cattle prods. Frankly, that's just rude, so B'Elanna gets all punchy on his face, then leaves. Back in her quarters, Paris visits to see how things went, gets angry when she doesn't want to share the trauma of her entire upbringing, then makes it all about him and stomps out because Tom Paris is a fucking dick. In Janeway's meeting room, Noodles is telling us about how things are terrible for his people, going into detail about starving children and the wailing of the ill. Then he calls us ungenerous for not offering more, and I'm starting to get strong con man vibes from Noodles. The others don't seem to see what I do, and Janeway goes further, prompting his thanks as he's escorted away. Perhaps we should have better planned his route, as he sees Seven and that diplomatic incident occurs. He wants to know where his wife and children are, accusations that don't seem to affect Seven at all as he's led away. Paris asks if she's all right, leaving her somewhat confused as to why she wouldn't be. You can't hurt the feelings of someone who doesn't know what feelings are yet, but Paris offers her solace anyway. Maybe it's genuine, him seeing someone else who has a checkered past, or maybe he's lining up another option just in case B'Elanna doesn't work out. We're ready to try that Borg transwarp doohickey. It's just a test, so we'll open the door, take a peek, and then close it again. That should be safe enough. It's not like that'll cause some sort of error cascade that results in us dumping the entire warp core. So after we've dumped the warp core, Janeway pops down to engineering to find out what went wrong. We're not sure, but we do know that we need to get it back now it's had a chance to cool down without endangering the ship. We can't go back in Voyager because we've buggered the impulse engines, so Paris is going in a shuttle. Oh, and so is B'Elanna to make sure the core's stable before moving it. That won't be awkward at all. They set off to grab it, only to find Noodles has the same plan. Wouldn't it be interesting to discover our warp core issues had something to do with those thorium particles he wanted? He's claimed the core as salvage and is trying to tractor it in, ignoring requests to stop. This is bad enough, but it also risks making the whole thing kaboom, so we'd best stop him ourselves. A little light blue pooping doesn't go as planned when Noodles does a science on it and starts shaking the shuttle apart. We can't stop it, but handily this shuttle has some spacesuits, so we're going to put those on and take a walk. Noodles turns around and scarpers with the core while the shuttle continues to shake itself apart. Paris tries to contact Voyager with no success, but at least the teleporters still work, so we have a nice view of the shuttle kabooming. Paris tries to call Voyager again, only to be told by B'Elanna that the signal from the suit isn't strong enough. There's a chance linking them both together and doing a science might reach them, so they do that. They may be waiting for a while for Voyager to come and fetch them, as they're too busy trying to figure out why the warp core went tits up in the first place. To that end, Janeway is questioning Seven, during which Seven realizes Janeway suspects her. Seven explains that the whole concept of deception is new to her, as there was no capacity for lies among the Borg. Turns out it's real difficult to bullshit someone when they can see into your brain. Janeway seems to accept this and instead starts working with her to establish the real cause. Back in space, Paris isn't letting a little thing like being marooned in spacesuits stop him from trying his luck. Even the universe has had enough of his shit, and some sort of wibbly damages his oxygen supply. He's going to suffocate, so B'Elanna shares her oxygen with him, sticking her life-giving plug into his waiting socket, and... Is this Freudian? I don't know if this is Freudian. It'll all be academic soon anyway, as the wibbly damaged her suit too, so now they only have half an hour of air. There's finally some good news on Voyager. We found the cause of the warp core problem, and it looks like an accident, so Noodles isn't guilty of that, at least. Ensign Conspicuous also tells us we'll have impulse engines online shortly, and Chakotay has detected the signal B'Elanna and Paris sent out, so we might be able to go and help them. Or not, as Noodles turns up with some of his mates. They want more supplies, and they're not begging this time. Told you it was a fucking wrong'un. He wants food, guns, more thorium, and Seven, too, for a bit of sweet, sweet revenge. While they're dealing with Noodles, B'Elanna's using her impending death to come to terms with how she pushes people away. I'd argue she's leaving it a bit late, but at least she got there in the end. Paris also nearly almost makes some sort of character progression by asking if he's still as much of a dick as he was when they first met. After some more threats from Noodles, Seven offers to surrender. That's unacceptable to Janeway, as she's the only one allowed to murder members of Voyager's crew, so we get ready for a fight instead. Except there may be another option. Seven says she can make a thorium regenerator, something to provide an endless supply of the material that powers their ships, and that this may be enough to make them back off. When asked by Chakotay why she hadn't considered this until now, she says Borg don't give away tech, so she's unaccustomed to that way of thinking. Cue a visit from Noodles, who accepts the tech along with schematics and components for building more. Let's hope their behaviour was born of desperation, otherwise we've just armed a bunch of complete bastards. As B'Elanna and Paris are about to breathe their last, B'Elanna realizes she's been a coward for hiding behind an unapproachable air of hostility before declaring her love for Paris. He responds with humour, apparently having learned nothing about not being a defensive twat, as Voyager arrives to pick them up. The rescue mission would have been quicker in a warp-capable shuttle, of course, but nobody seems to think of that as we fly away. Let's talk about B'Elanna's attempt to explore a little more of her heritage. There's one line in this episode that perhaps explains this all by itself. "The rituals my mother taught me, they don't seem quite so hateful as they did when I was a child." Maybe that's originally born of an internalized xenophobia from her experiences growing up. Maybe it's the association she made between her father leaving and anything Klingon. There's a fair chance it's both. It's possible, maybe probable, that her attempt to explore her heritage was a test of courage for something rather more current. When talking to Paris, she refers to her defensive nature as cowardice, and I suspect that choice of term is intentional. Was engaging with the ritual her way of trying to find the strength to accept who she is, whether that means her past or her terrible, terrible taste in partners? Or perhaps she just needed to be dying of hypoxia before she'd settle for him. End of episode.
Hello, it's Space Dog again. Did you miss me? He's been putting some right shite on instead, hasn't he? Other people would be able to do admin and make it funny. Other people with talent, anyway. That's probably why he's relying on me. Why else would he keep coming back to a character that's basically him insulting himself? Unless it's a sex thing. Oh shit.